ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिकी। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविन्दाय नमो नमः। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनच्छलाकया चक्षुरोन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कृतामह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनासहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्तकाञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी शुभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते रघुनाथ स्वामी नामिने। नमो ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषण्यवाद पाश्चात्य वाचालम अंगुम लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं शरणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्री चैतन्य ईश्वरम्। हरि ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. So we are continuing our discussion on the Bhagavad cosmology. We are discussing chapter 18 today. The chapter 18 is entitled The Prayers Offered to the Lord by the Residents of Jambudvip. The previous chapter was entitled The Descent of the River Ganges. So a very quick summary of what we have discussed so far. Let me just quickly share screen. So we have been discussing the structure of the universe as per the Srimad Bhagavat, and this is what the universe looks like. It's a high-level simplified picture, though. I'm assuming all of you can see the shared screen showing the image of the universe. So there is the Garbhodak Ocean, and within the Garbhodak Ocean, there is Kurmadev. On Kurma's back, Lord Shesha is resting, and assisted by the 8 Diggaja elephants, Shesha is supporting the Bhumandala plate, which is a huge circular, thick disk of earth, which is being supported and which almost practically is as wide as the diameter of the universe. Our particular universe is around, I'm not wrong, 5 billion yojanas or something like that. This huge disk, which is known as the Bhumandala. At the center of the Bhumandala is an exceptional mountain which rises tall and high, made of gold, which is known as Mount Sumeru. Now, some of these constructs are subtle, So, if we look out from our gallery or into the sky, and we're wondering why I don't see the gold mountain, maybe I can solve all my financial problems if I can get there and bring some back. So, the easier way to get there is, perform pious activity. It is part of Homa Swarga. If you are born in Ilavarta Varsha, then you can get access to Mount Sumeru. Anyway, so this is the Bhumandal, which we discussed. The top view of the Bhumandal is something like this. This is also again a simplified view, not exactly to scale, but will give us some idea. The Bhumandal, which was ruled at one time by Maharaj Priyavrat, he divided with the wheel of his chariot into 7 dvipas. It was a one-wheeled huge chariot. The details of that story are mentioned in a subsequent chapter, but I'm just briefly mentioning it here. The ditches that the chariot wheel created must have been a very huge chariot wheel. And he must have been very huge himself, being a very divine, empowered personality. These various trenches were filled in with various liquids, some with salt water, one with sugarcane juice, one with liquor, one with ghee, one with milk, one with yogurt, and the last one with sweet drinking water. So these various oceans were formed, which separated these land masses, almost circular ring-like land masses from each other, which are known as Dvipa. The definition of Dvipa, as we discussed, is that landmass which on two sides surrounded by water, drinks water from both sides. So these are Dvipas. These are like concentric pieces of land. The details of who are the residents of each of these Dvipas is not described in great detail, and the geographies is not described in great detail, but Jambudvip very specifically, which is the central Dvipa. If you see here, the small blue circle at the center of Bhumandal, if you can see. This is Jambudvip, which is surrounded by the saltwater ocean. This Jambudvipa, because we are situated in Jambudvipa, the Bhagavatam goes to great extent to describe the geography of Jambudvip to a fair detail. Anyway, Bhagavatam is not meant to be a geography book, but to give us some idea and appreciation of the topic of sthanam, how living entities are situated across various planetary systems. The details of Jambudvip are given. So zoom into Jambudvip. So that blue dot has been zoomed into. This Jambudvip, which is the center of the Bhumandal, the very central Dvipa, which is surrounded by the saltwater ocean, is itself divided by mountains into 9 varshas. A varsha, as we discussed earlier, is akin to a valley between mountains. Either it is a valley between 2 mountains, or there is sea on one side and a mountain on the other side. So it is kind of locked between mountains and seas. So there are 9 varshas, and you can see there is a particular symmetry there. The central varsha out of these 9 is known as Ilavarta Varsha. And then there are 2 varshas on 2 sides, the Bhadrashva Varsha and the Ketumala Varsha sides. And on the north, there is Ramyaka Varsha, Hiranmaya Varsha, and Kuru Varsha. And on the south, there is Hari Varsha, Kimpurush Varsha, and Bharata Varsha. Of course, our specific interest in terms of our own geography is Bharat Varsha. We also briefly discussed that it is not that Bharat Varsha is India. In fact, the whole Bharat Varsha is also not Earth. In fact, Bharat Varsha itself is divided into 9 khandas, the southernmost tip of which is Bharat Khanda, What are these 9 khandas? Who are the residents? We'll discuss another day. But that is not discussed in the Bhagavad. It is mentioned in another book. But we'll discuss this someday. Okay, remind me if I forget. But who are the residents in these 9 varshas? 9 khandas? Because they are all like islands in the saltwater ocean. But they are very interesting. It is said no one can travel from one khanda to another. So those who are born on earth, which is Bharat Khanda, we cannot jump and go into another khanda of Bharatvarsha. For one lifetime, we are restricted to one. And how exactly is the restriction? What is the physical? I mean, that is all not described. So I do not know the answer to that question, but looks like those realms are not accessible as physically, at least for an ordinary human being, obviously. Yeah, extraordinary, powerful beings can travel. What to speak of other khandas? They can travel even to higher planets. So, for at least for ordinary human beings like us, we are restricted to Bharat Khanda, which is at the southern tip of Bharatvarsha. So, this is what we described as the geography. And then the Bhagavatam is now focusing on discussing a little bit more details of the geography of Jambudvipa itself. When we began the discussion of the geography of Jambudvipa, we started by the discussion of the descent of the Ganges. Why we started with that is because Ganges first descends itself from the Karanada ocean, touching the lotus feet of Lord Vamana, coming down on Lord Shiva's mats, then going through Dhruvalok, Saptarishi Lok, moon, from the moon coming down and falling on top of the center of Mount Sumeru, which is Brahmapuri, if you recollect. From here, she breaks into four tributaries and she spills down from Mount Sumeru and crosses all these mountains and finally reaches the saltwater ocean, the 4 directions. So that topic was discussed in a fair amount of detail. We also discussed details about the beauty and the various mountains around Ilavarta Varsha already. And after describing the descent of Ganges, the Bhagavatam gets into the topic of the discussion of the various Varshas of Jambudvip are the principal residents of each of these Varshas and which form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead they worship. This itself is a very interesting topic. We have also discussed earlier that all these planets other than Bharatvarsha, sorry, I don't want to use the word planets, great confusion. All these Varshas in Jambudvipa are all Bhauma Swarga except for Bharatavarsha, which is Karma Bhumi. All the khandas of Bharatvarsha, earth included, are Karma Bhumi, but these other Varshas, Kimpurusha, Hari, Bhadrashva, etc., are all Bhauma Swarga, where one enjoys 10,000 years of life, full of youth, vitality, excellent enjoyment. Perhaps not as good as the Divya Swargas, but still much better than what we find on earth. Actually, earthly enjoyment is very ordinary. But actually very low class. But still we get so attracted and attached to the pleasures of earth. That is the sad thing. It's like going to a restaurant and getting food, saltless food. The pleasure of the earth is, very pale as compared to the pleasure in the heavenly planets. Even in the Bhauma Swarga, what to speak of Divya Swarga, and if Divya Swarga is thousands of times higher than what to speak of Janar, Mahar, Tapar, Satya, and ultimately of the spiritual world. Millions and billions of times greater. So cannot even fathom. Anyway, so the current topic under discussion is about the deities and the residents of the various 9 Varshas and the prayers that these residents, headed by their principal occupant, what are the prayers by which they are worshipping these various deities? So the Lord is so kind that there is a predominant form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead worshipped in each of these varshas. In the previous chapter, chapter 17, the descent of the Ganges, the last part of that chapter already discussed this topic vis-a-vis Ilavarta Varsha. Correct? You remember? We have already discussed with respect to Ilavarta Varsha. So can you tell me who is the main resident of Ilavarta Varsha that we discussed?
Lord Shiva.
Lord Shiva. Thank you. And who is the predominating deity of Ilavarta Varsha which Lord Shiva worships?
Sankarshan. Sankarshan.
Sankarshan.
Yes, Lord Sankarshan. Very good. Thank you. And then we discussed the prayers that Lord Shiva offers to Lord Sankarshan, and we discussed the various philosophical aspects. Correct? Yeah. So in that way, in the previous chapter, this same topic, which is prayers by the residents of Jambudvip, was already covered vis-a-vis Ilavarta Varsha. In chapter 18, we are going to be discussing the same topic with respect to 6 more varshas: Guru Varsha, Hiranmaya Varsha, Ramyaka Varsha, Ketumal Varsha, Bhadrashva Varsha, and Hari Varsha. And in chapter 19, the same topic will continue, service Impurusha Varsha and Bharata Varsha. Okay, I hope you are with me. So, we are not going to be discussing a lot of geography now, at least for this class. But what we are going to discuss is within this geography, who's residing. So it will be interesting to know, oh, this personality is here, this personality lives here. So in case somebody asks you, oh, where is Lord Shiva? I went on Kailas mountain here, but I didn't find him. Huh? Oh, it's because that Kailas is here. Actually, it's in Ilavarta Varsha. You went to the wrong Kailas. So he's there. But please don't go to Ilavarta Varsha Kailas unless you want to be transformed to a woman. Because Bhavani transforms anybody, any man who enters it, especially the area of Kailas and the nearby hill. I forgot the name of that hill. So in that valley, Lord Shiva is performing his pastimes. So that is going to be the focus today. So we will cover the discussion starting with Bhadrashva Varsha and then go into others. So this chapter, as the title itself speaks, is covering 3 key topics for each of this Varsha. 1, who is the main resident? 2nd, who is the deity that he is worshipping? And 3rd is the prayers by which this principal resident is worshipping this principal deity. So many of these prayers are very beautiful. A lot of philosophical insights and spiritual knowledge is there. So these are all very advanced personalities who are residing and leading these beautiful Bhauma Swarga episodes. My intention is, as always, to give a summary. So I will not be discussing all the prayers and all the philosophical aspects in detail, but I will briefly highlight some key aspects of the prayers that these personalities have mentioned, because some of these prayers are, really, really very important, significant points have been mentioned. So a disclaimer, we are not going to be discussing each and every verse, but I'm going to be giving you a summary with some highlights from some of these prayers. Are you all with me? Any questions so far? Great. Okay. So so this image you have to remember. But anyway, for the topic of today's discussion, you don't need to memorize that particular picture, but at least you know that we are discussing various varshas from. So we'll be discussing Bhadrashva Varsha, Hari Varsha, Ketumal Varsha, Ramyak Varsha, Hiranmaya Varsha, and Karkuru Varsha. So Bhadrashva Varsha, which is on the right of Ilavarta Varsha, That particular Varsha is known as the Bhadrashva Varsha because Bhadrashrava is the son of Dharmaraj, Yamaraj. Yamaraj's son is staying in Bhadrashva Varsha. Now, it is not mentioned here in this Bhagavad, in this particular place. Maybe it's mentioned elsewhere. How come these inhabitants came and happened to occupy these particular spaces? It's not mentioned. So I do not know. There must be some historical episodes behind, why these personalities came to these abodes, but all that is not mentioned here. So Bhadrashrava, accompanied by other residents, is situated in this particular Bhadrashva Varsha, and he worships a form of the Lord known as Hayagriva. Hayagriva is a very interesting incarnation of the Lord. It's not very popular. Many individuals would not have even heard. How many of you have never heard of Hayagriva incarnation of the Lord? Raise your hand. Never heard. 2, 3, 4. So this is not a very popular incarnation. So the name Hayagriva literally means, Haya means horse, Griva means head. It is the horse-headed incarnation of the Supreme Lord. Now, why we don't hear about this incarnation? This is a Leela avatar. Why we don't hear about it so often is because it's a very, very specific pastime which happens at the end of a kalpa. It is said at the end of a kalpa, when Brahma goes to sleep, if you remember, kalpa is half of it is Brahma's day, half of it is Brahma's night. When Brahma is sleeping, a demon by the name of Ajnana, whose ignorance personified, when Brahma is sleeping, his 4 heads representing the 4 Vedas comes and steals the Vedas from Lord Brahma. Now, how exactly he downloads the Vedas and all that technologically, I do not know. So don't ask me that question. But somehow, it said when he's sleeping from his yawning or something like that, it is said. The Vedas come. So these are all subtle things. We will not be able to map it to our human experience. But there is some way by which he snatches the knowledge of the Vedas away from Brahmaji and he runs away. So at the end of every day of Brahma has to again wake up and again, the lower part of the creation again has to be set into order. So Lord Brahmaji is also busy every day. That is his 9 to 5. Or up to Janarlok, up to Swargalok, everything has to be remanifested. Because only Janar Mahar Tapar Satya is, even though it is dark during the night of Brahma, it is not destroyed. But the lower part is all annihilated. There's a partial annihilation during every night. Kalpa Anta. So Hayagriva is that form of the Lord where he has a human body and the head of a horse appears. Now all that is not mentioned here. I'm just giving you a background. He appears, he defeats this demon Ajnana and he recovers the Vedas back from him. And he passes them back to Brahma. And then Brahma gets back all the knowledge. Correct? So again, he has access. The whole life. Sometimes we have a phone, suddenly we lose network, cannot access. Then we again need connectivity, so we get that. So the knowledge of the Vedas is eternal. It is for us to tap into it and access. So that is the form of Hayagriva, and that particular form, I've barely seen a temple of Hayagriva in this world. I do not know, there may be some, but at least I have not heard of many. So obviously this incarnation is not so popular because of a limited interaction with Brahmaji, possibly in Brahmaloka, where the Lord appears in that particular form. But it's a very interesting incarnation. So this particular incarnation protects the Vedas. Hayagriva is the Lord who protects the Vedas and gives it back to Brahma. It's worshipped by Bhadrashrava. So Bhadrashrava, great devotion, worships Lord Hayagriva, who is also known as Hayashirsha. who is the reservoir of all religious principles. Of course, the Supreme Lord is the reservoir of all spiritual principles. And he's the one who saves the living entities and purifies them. So there are two interesting points that he mentions in his prayer. So without going into all the details, I just want to highlight these 2 points. So there are 2 beautiful shlokas in which Bhadrashrava is praying Lord Hayashirsha and saying that, oh Lord, you are so powerful, you are transcendental, you are pure, but your Maya is so powerful. It's so powerful that people in this world, even though everyone knows they are going to die, they act and behave as if they are never going to die. And this is not just the case for ordinary materialistic ignorant fools. Even sometimes those who are advanced in knowledge, they also become ensnared by illusory energy, and they also sometimes forget that they are in temporary material existence. Interesting point. See, those who are serious about spiritual life are always supposed to be not fearful of death, but always cognizant of the temporary nature of material existence. Because only when we are cognizant of the temporary nature of material existence, we will really make sincere effort to progress towards the real goal of life. Otherwise, what happens? We try to make an impermanent place permanent, and we just get frustrated in that effort. But sometimes even wise people, correct? So many of us give Bhagavad Gita classes. But then time to time we realize, oh, I am behaving and acting and living my life sometimes in such a way as if this is itself all in all. So he says that your energy, your Maya energy is so powerful. I offer my respectful obeisances and truth. So that was the discussion about Bhadrashva Varsha. The next discussion is about Hari Varsha. So if you recollect, Hari Varsha was just below Ilavarta Varsha. Correct? Below Ilavarta Varsha is Hari Varsha, Kimpurusha Varsha, and the lowest is Bharat Varsha. So Hari Varsha is very, very special because the chief resident in Hari Varsha is our very glorious and famous devotee, Shri Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad is staying in Hari Varsha, even up to today. Okay, so if you want to meet Shri Prahlad Maharaj, then that is the travel that you have to undertake. You have to go to Hari Varsha. And in Hari Varsha, make a guess who Prahlad is worshipping as his predominating principal deity. Any guesses?
Lord Narasimha.
Narasimhadev.
Haribo, yes, worshipping Lord Narasimha. He is so attached to Lord Narasimha after Lord Narasimha appeared and saved him and delivered his father, Hiranyakashipu. Prahlad, who is a pure devotee of the Lord, so attached to Lord Narasimha, is engaged always in worshipping Lord Narasimha. Prahlad is described as Mahabhagavata, great pure devotee of the Lord and a reservoir of good qualities. Prahlad, Dhruva, their characters is so glorious. Prahlad even more than Dhruva. Because Dhruva at one time had a material inclination and eventually became a pure devotee. But Prahlad, since practically his appearance was always a pure devotee, always remembering Lord Hari, never forgetting Lord Hari. Prahlad is also known as Chaitya Danava Kula Tirthi Karana Shila Charitaha. Why is he famous? He's famous because by his presence, he purified the family of demons. Now, this is a great blessing. This is a very interesting name that the Bhagavad describes Prahlad. Why it's interesting? Because even if a family is materialistic, because what does demon mean? Demoniac here means materialistic. Those who are not interested in the higher purpose of life, but just interested in a life of I, me, and mine. That's considered a demoniac life. Even such a family is delivered if a devotee appears in that family. By the way, I just remember this. I sent a video, I think it was in Hindi yesterday. I think it was yesterday, if I'm not wrong, where one of these devotees, one brahmachari, is speaking about a story which a particular man, he passed away. And Yamadutas took him in front of Yamaraj. And he asked him, why you should not be punished? Is there anything good that you have done? So he was recounting various things. And then he suddenly remembered. He said, oh, my son is an ISKCON devotee. Real story, yeah? Yamaraj said, oh, yeah, it's true. Then he immediately instructed the Yamaduta, sorry, you brought the wrong person. He is not meant to be treated like this. So we can't punish him. Because he's related, has a close relationship with the devotee of the Lord. But then Yamaraj warned him, and the Yamadutas warned him. We are taking you back, but you make sure that there are some devotees selling Bhagavad Gita nearby on a railway platform. Go there and immediately purchase the Bhagavad Gita and you read it. If you don't, again we'll come for you. So the family had already made arrangements for a funeral for that particular man. They were already taking him on the way to the crematorium. Suddenly he came back to life. Because he was brought back. True story, yeah? Recent true story. Then he got up and, I don't know whether he immediately went to the train station or not, but he went to the train station and he picked up a Bhagavad Gita and he started crying. Devotees asked him, why you are crying? Just by seeing Bhagavad Gita. This is, Then he narrated this episode that this is what happened. So the words of the Bhagavad, the words of these are not all, imaginary things and imaginary stories. And again, why I mentioned this story is just by one devotee, and we are not talking even about a devotee of the caliber of Prahlad, ordinary sadhakas, those who are sincerely trying to make progress in Krishna consciousness, just by a person being born, his family is delivered. They were saved, isn't it? So Prahlad is glorified. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that of all the Daityas, I am Prahlad. Krishna says. Prahlad is the one who glorified the Daityas of being born in that family. So that's a very special blessing. For a family to have a devotee born within them is glorious. And if the whole family is full of devotees, then what to speak of? Imagine how much that family will be dear to Krishna. Anyway, so that was a little bit about Prahlad. So Prahlad in Harivarsha, along with all the other residents who are also fans of Lord Narasimha. Many people love Narasimha. Narasimha is that form of the Lord. It's Krishna in an angry form. When Krishna wants to exhibit his anger, Krishna feels, the flute and this, display anger is not, doesn't gel with his personality as Shyam Sundar. So he has to take a very intense form. So he takes this half man, half lamb. It's the personification of the Lord's anger, especially to protect his devotees. So Prahlad and the other residents of Harivarsha worship Lord Narasimha with very beautiful prayers, and there are some very beautiful prayers here. And these prayers are very important, especially by a Mahabhagavat like Prahlad. So I will spend a few minutes to highlight some points. It's very beautiful prayers which are very purifying, directed towards Lord Narasimha. So with your permission, I will recite them for our purification. Listen to them with devotion. Prahlad is saying, Om Namo Bhagavate Narasimhaya, Namaste Jate Tejase, Avir Bhava, Vajra Nakha, Vajra Damshtra, Karmashayan Randhaya, randhaya. Tamo grasa grasa om swaha abhayam abhayam atmani uyishta om shraum. So essentially this prayer summarily means that, oh Lord Narasimha, you are the source of all power. Please appear in our hearts, have nails and teeth like thunderbolts. With that powerful weapons that you have and the extraordinary power that you have, vanquish not just our external enemies, because that is for the materialistic people. Materialistic people are more keen to destroy external enemies. Devotee knows that the real enemy is inside. Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Matsara. Randhaya, Randhaya. Tear all these enemies which are inside. Ultimately, which means to destroy ignorance. And may, by your mercy, we all become fearless. Because this is the symptom of a person who has actually realized the Supreme Lord, has actually achieved an Advaya non-dual vision, who sees the Supreme Lord's hand everywhere, who's fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of God, and he becomes free from fear. Like Prahlad is such an excellent example of a person free from fear, because he has taken full shelter of the Lord. Correct? That's why no matter what Hiranyakashipu tried to kill Prahlad by whatever means, he was not even the slightest bit agitated. It was not that when Prahlad, he was being thrown from mountains, he was saying, please, please don't, I'm a good devotee, please don't do Krishna save me. Some of us may be doing like that, and that's okay at our level. Not a problem. Prahlad is cool. Throwing from mountain, no problem. Put him in a pit of snakes, no problem. Whatever is the desire of the Lord. And because of his extraordinary faith and dependence on the Lord would personally come and save him from all these calamities. And then very interesting prayer Prahlad makes to Lord Narsingha, which is the next verse, is very beautiful. He prays to Lord Narsingha that, oh Lord Narsingha, there are so many envious people in this world. Khala. Let all of them be peaceful. Khala prasidatam. Because these envious people are creating so much disturbance in society. Actually, earth can be such a beautiful, peaceful place, right? There are so many envious people who want to create problems, greedy, envious people. So Prahlad Maharaj prays to the Lord that, oh Lord, please bless us in such a way that all the people who are envious will become peaceful. And how will they become peaceful? By becoming your devotee. So bless everyone, that everybody becomes the devotee, so that everyone will be free from envy and there will be happy, wonderful society everywhere. Nirmatsara. And may our minds be absorbed in you. May we practice bhakti yoga without material desires. And for us to progress in devotional service, please give us the blessing that we may always attain the association of your devotees and we develop attachment to devotees rather than developing attachment to our blood relatives. Now, this is something which often relatives, close relatives of devotees often complain. Oh, you are more attached to devotees than you are concerned about your mother, father, brother, is that. But actually, Prahlad is asking, this is what I want, this is what it should be. Why? Because in this world, what will save one ultimately is attachment to the devotees of the Lord. Because attachment to the devotees leads to attachment to the Lord. Attachment to materialistic relatives. I mean, we have nothing against relatives. We should respect and honor everybody. But that by itself will simply keep us absorbed in the material concept of life and will not help us make spiritual progress. So let us just be happy with the bare necessities of life and not chase after material things. Oh Lord, Narasimha, please give us this blessing. Let us always have the attachment only for devotees rather than to home, wife, children, friend, money and relatives. Why? Because by association with devotees, one can hear about the Lord. And when one will hear about your uncommon glories from the lips of devotees who have attachment to you, our attraction for you, O Lord, will arise. And that will be the cause of our great good fortune. Because if one bathes in the water of the Ganges, it takes a long time to get purified. But if one bathes in the nectar of Hari Katha coming from the lips of your devotees, very rapidly we can become purified of material contamination and develop attachment to your lotus. Because in the form of the divine message, the Lord himself enters Karana Randrena, and he comes and becomes established in the heart of the devotee. That's why which intelligent person will not want to hear about the glories of Lord Mukunda from the lips of devotees? Correct? So this is all also a tribute to all of you, because you are making an effort to listen to the message of the Bhagavad. So that means you all are very rare souls. That blessing which Prahlad is asking for, we all have already received. Okay, so let us be grateful and give a gentle pat on the back. At least we have come this far. Not out of false pride, but out of a sense of gratitude that somehow received the favor of the Lord and his devotees. And another very interesting verse is a very, very famous verse with which more or less it's towards the culmination of these prayers by Prahlad. This particular verse, Prabhupada quotes many times across the Bhagavad and across his various classes. Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati akinchana sarvair gunais tatra samasate suraha harav bhaktasya kuto mahadgunaha manorathena sati dhavato bahihi. Essentially, Prahlad Maharaj says that actually good qualities, genuine divine good qualities automatically manifest in the personality of a devotee. A non-devotee does not have any good qualities. Why? Because he is not actually purified. He is just hovering on the mental platform. And that is why all the qualities that may apparently be manifest in his personality are not actually genuine, deep, internal spiritual qualities. They are all just mental concoctions. So Prabhupada quotes this often in the context of saying that when one becomes a devotee, automatically all the divine qualities which are manifest in the devatas becomes manifest in such a personality. And that is why one should take shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Narasimha, because they are the source of all fearlessness. Tasmadrajo raga vishadamanyu manas priha bhayadainyadi moolam itvagraham samsruti chakravalam narasimha padam bhajata akuto bhayam. Narasimhadev Bhagavan ki Prahlad Maharaj. So that concludes the discussion of the section of which Varsha? Everybody remembers what we are discussing?
Hari Varsha.
Thank you. Hari Varsha. Okay. So Bhadrashva Varsha was Bhadrashrava worshipping Hayashirsha or Hayagriva. Hari Varsha, Prahlad worshipping Narasimha. The next is Ketumal Varsha, which is on the other side of Bhadrashva Varsha. So Ketumal Varsha is a very interesting Varsha, because the main resident of Ketumal Varsha who's mentioned here is Lakshmi Devi. Now this Lakshmi Devi is the consort of Kamadeva. So Lord Pradyumna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Pradyumna, manifests himself as Kamadeva. And on this planet, Kamadeva and Lakshmi Devi as husband and wife are residing. So this is the original Kamadeva. The origin of Kamadeva is Pradyumna. The Kamadeva whom we know as Madan, whose wife is Rati, they are a different couple. They are not this. Because the original Kamadeva is the Supreme Personality of God. So the empowerment of Madan, whose wife is Rati, comes from this Pradyumna, who is the transcendental Kamadeva. Okay, so just so that we don't get confused. So in Ketumala Varsha, Kamadeva resides with Lakshmi Devi, and Kamadeva stays there, it is said, with there with the sons and daughters of Prajapati Samvatsara. Prajapati Samvatsara, he has 36,000 sons and daughters, each representing the day and the night in the life of a human being. So life of a human being is said to be around 100 years. Each year, roughly 360 days. 360 into 100 is, 36,000. So there are 36,000 sons and 36,000 daughters. 36,000 sons represent the 36,000 days. 36,000 daughters represent 36,000 daughters. And nights represent the 36,000 daughters. So these are actual personalities. And these personalities are in charge of these various days. Actually, in our culture, it is so, if you actually go into the details of Jyotish and Panchanga, we don't have time for that. But each and every year has a name. Just like there is a name for each and every Manvantar, each and every Yuga, each and every year has a name. So this year has a particular name. Last year has a particular name. I don't remember the name, but there is a name. Those who are conversant in Panchanga, they will know. And each and every day, which repeats itself in the cycle of 100 years, also has a specific name. The day has a name, the night has a name, and there is a specific deity who's in charge of that day. Now, what exactly they do know, I do not know, but it is something related to controlling the time factor. So this Kamadeva and Lakshmi, who's known as Rama, they are sporting in Ketumala Varsha. Both are extraordinarily beautiful. They are smiling, and especially Kamadeva, it is said, just by moving his eyebrows can enchant the whole world. The eyebrows of Kamadeva and even that of Krishna. What if Kamadeva, then what to speak of Krishna? Because this Kamadeva we are talking about Pradyumna. They look like a bow, isn't it? If you look at our eyebrows like this, right? It looks like a bow. What kind of a bow? Pushpaban. So that the arrows of the glances can be tied on this bow and shot. Correct? Like in the material world, when a girl looks affectionately at a boy, you say, no, usne aankhon se tir mara. Shot an arrow with the eyes. So this originally comes from the Supreme Lord. This is the bow. And from his eyes, the arrows are shot. Because when the arrows of the divine affectionate glance of the Supreme Personality comes and hits the heart, the devotee becomes enamored in love and affection by that beautiful glance. That is known as Pushpa Ban. And that Ban is a Ban of flowers. It's not a Ban which will pierce and cause bleed. It causes a different kind of bleeding. It causes the pain of separation in the heart of the devotees of the Lord. Of course, the perverted reflection of that in the material world, we know what it is. But that is not the topic of our discussion. So Rama is serving the Lord. She pleases the transcendental senses of Kamadeva. Ramam Ramayan Indriyani Ramayate. So it is said Lakshmi Devi during the daytime she is accompanied by the 36,000 sons of Prajapati Samvatsar. Samvatsar means year. So this Prajapati Samvatsar 36,000 daughters and sons. During the day she is accompanied by the sons, and during the night she is accompanied and assisted by the daughters. And then she is always absorbed in serving Lord Rishikesh, the Lord of the senses, who is Kamadeva. She prays to him very beautifully. I'm not going to go through the praise. I just want to mention one point because we are short of time and I want to complete the chapter. Quite a few, but I think I'll manage. We may go 5-10 minutes over time. Right? One thing she mentions about Lord Kamadevi says, "Oh Lord, you are the real pati. You are the real husband, not only for me, but for all living entities." Because who's a pati? Only that person is fit to call himself a pati who is himself fully fearless and who can bestow fearlessness on others. And who's worthy taking shelter of. Husbands in this material world are unable to actually give fearlessness, nor are they themselves fearless. So actually for all living entities, you are the ultimate pati, you are the real husband, not just for me, but for us. So that is why rather than worshipping any devatas who are also affected by fear, one should take shelter of the giver of all fearless. So many people are seeking my favor because I'm Lakshmi, but I don't give my blessings to anybody unless they become your servants. True blessings, which means real good fortune. I may temporarily give some material wealth, but that wealth will also disappear very soon because I'm Chanchala in this material world. But real good fortune, real Shubha Labh comes when somebody worships the Lord, because then I will actually give my real favor. But oh Lord, I have one complaint to you. People say I am on your chest as the Srivatsa mark, as a streak of silver lining. People think, oh, I have achieved such a wonderful position to be on the chest of the Lord. But actually, I don't think like that. Actually, I'm unfortunate or not as fortunate, because the real good fortune is actually achieved by your devotees on whose head you put your lotus-like hands. So I want that kind of good fortune. So even Lakshmi Devi is feeling that the other devotees are getting even more intimate blessings. So that is her humility. So she's saying, you are giving them real mercy, you are not giving me. So that brings us to the conclusion of the discussion of Ketumala Varsha. Then we move on to Ramyaka Varsha. In Ramyaka Varsha, the great personality Vaivasvata Manu resides. So Vaivasvata Manu is in charge of the current Manvantar. The first Manvantara, Swayambhuva Manu, was in charge. The current Manvantara, which is which Manvantara number out of 14?
28.
No,
28 Chatur you guys going on.
Seven.
Yeah, 7th Manvantara, 28th Chatur you guys going on. 7th Manvantara is known as Vaivasvat Manvantara. It was this Vaivasvat Manu who was saved at the end of the previous Manvantara, which is known as the Chakshusha Manvantara. Again, each Manvantara has a name. First Manvantara is Swayambhuva Manu. Previous one was Chakshusha. Current one was Vaivasvata. At the end of the Chakshusha Manvantara, when the whole earth was flooded, Matsya came, his divine form as a fish, and saved Vaivasvata Manu and his family. So this is the story which is copied by the Christians and the Muslims as story of the ark and all that. Anyway, I don't want to go into that, but they've exactly borrowed this story from our Puranas and put it as there. Of course, we have no problem, but you have to acknowledge the source. So that is the story of Manvantara. Vaivasvata Manvantara, Vaivasvata Manu. So Vaivasvata Manu, he got the grace of Matsya avatar, and since then, it said, later on, of course, when his Manvantara came, he settled in Ramyaka Varsha, where even to this day he is worshipping the Lord in the form of Matsya avatar. And very beautifully, he offers various prayers to Matsya avatar that you are actually ultimately the protector of all living entities and the Lord of all living entities. You are the one who protected me along with the earth and all the herbs and plants and all the animals at the end of the previous Manvantara. You saved us from the flood and you roamed around the floods of inundation, pulling a boat in which all of us were there. So thank you so much. I offer my obeisances. You who are the cause of all living entities. Prana, Prana, Atma. Then the prayers continue to Hiranyamaya Varsha. So in Hiranyamaya Varsha, Aryama is the chief resident. Aryama is the head of the Pitris. So if you remember, even in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, of all the Pitris, I am Aryama. So Aryama is one of the demigods who is the chief of all the Pitris. Pitris are the ancestors who were in the Pitriloka. In this particular Hiranyamaya Varsha, Aryama worships Lord in the form of Kurmadev. Beautiful tortoise form of the Lord. So he offers many beautiful prayers. I am not going to go into those prayers now. Most of them are philosophical. And the last Varsha which is discussed is Uttar Kuru Varsha. In Uttar Kuru Varsha, the Lord in the form of Varahadev is worshipped by Bhumi Devi. So Bhumi Devi, who's in charge of the entire Bhumandal, is actually residing in Uttara Kuru Varsha. So it is said in this Uttara Kuru Varsha, the Lord in the form of Varahadev accepts various yajna offerings. So Mother Earth and all other residents worship him, devotional service, by offering him beautiful, beautiful prayers. And one of the beautiful prayers which are offered by Devi, she says very beautifully, she says that, O Lord, just as a person who's expert in creating fire from firewood, there is fire, but through a particular rubbing process, that fire becomes manifest from the firewood. You are normally concealed within material existence. You cannot be understood. Even by trying to understand you by performing karma and jnana, one cannot understand you. But when one performs bhakti, you who are actually unmanifest can actually be perceived. Your presence can be perceived within material existence. Oh Lord, you are transcendental. You are the controller of Maya. You are devoid of Maya. And this whole world, sometimes people think you have created this whole material world for your enjoyment, but oh Lord, you have no reason to enjoy this material world. This material world is not for your enjoyment. That this material world you manifested for living entities who have rebelled from you and who want to enjoy independent from you. You have created it out of Maya for conditioned living entities. But actually, this whole material world, without your energy, without your glance, actually nothing is moving. Just as iron is attracted by a magnet, similarly, through your glance, you make this whole material energy actually active. You are the active principle beyond all existence. I offer obeisances unto you as the original Sukara, the boar incarnation Varaha. You fought and killed the great demon Hiranyaksha. And then you lifted me, who had sunk into the Garbhodaka ocean. Lifted me on your tusks, just like an elephant will effortlessly pick up a lotus flower. I bow down unto you. So just to mention one thing, when Bhumi Devi says that Varahadev picked her up, I just want to clarify this. Sometimes we envision Varahadev with his tusk with a, with the earth, a round earth on it. But the earth that Varahadev saved is not just Bharat Khanda, which is just our planet. Saved the whole Bhumandal disk. It is said the whole Bhumandal disk lost balance because of Hiranyaksha's demoniac activities. And the Bhumandal, which was being balanced on the Diggajas and Shesha's heads, lost balance and sunk into the Garbhodaka ocean. You remember this picture? Let me share again. Let me share again. This whole disk. It lost balance and it collapsed and sunk into this ocean. It is supposed to be above the ocean, supported by these elephants and Shesha, but it lost its balance and sunk into the Garbhodaka ocean. It is said Varahadev came and lifted this disk up and placed it back into its orbit. Of course, the Earth is a part of this disk. So in that sense, the Earth planet was also rescued. But it was not just the Earth planet, the entire mantle was rescued. So that brings us to the conclusion of this particular chapter. So far, we have discussed. Second. Go back to these varshas. Actually, other than Kumbh Purusha Varsha and Bharat Varsha, we have discussed all other varshas. So Bhadrashra Varsha, here Shiva is worshipping Sankarsana, Ilavarta Varsha. Bhadrashra Varsha, who's worshipping whom? Bhadrashrava is worshipping Ayashirsha.
Ayashirsha.
Correct? Ayashirsha. Ketumal Varsha, who's worshipping who?
Lakshmi Devi
Lakshmi Devi
worships
worshipping
Kamadeva.
Very good.
Kamadeva.
Okay. Ramyaka Varsha.
Matsya, Vaisnava Manu.
Vaivatsva Manu worshipping Matsya avatar.
Matsya Avatar.
Okay. Hari Varsha.
Arjuna.
Prahlad Maharaj worshipping Narasimha.
Lord Narasimha.
Hiranmaya Varsha.
Aryama is worshipping Kurma Avatar. Worshipping Kurma Deva.
Yes. And Kuru Varsha.
Bhumi Devi is worshipping Lord Varaha.
Yeah. Uttar Kuru or Kuru Varsha. Uttar Kuru because it's the northernmost.
Uttar Kuru.
Yeah. Uttar Kuru is same as Kuru. Yeah. Uttar means north. So North Kuru. So this is the Uttar Kuru Varsha.
Oh.
Uttar Kuru is same as Kuru.
No.
Wonderful. Okay. So then these two are still pending discussion, and there is some interesting discussion on Bharat Varsha and the qualities of Bharat Varsha because it is Karma Bhumi. So that we will discuss in the next class. Okay. So I'm opening up the floor. If there is any questions or comments, then discuss.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, Indule.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Prabhu, what's the name of this Yama's son? The Bhadra.
Bhadrashrava. Bhadrashrava.
Yeah.
Bhadrashrava.
What's
And the name of the Varsha is Bhadrashrava. Bhadrashrava's
Yama's
Varsha
son.
is
What's the name?
Bhadrashrava. Dharmaraj, right?
Oh, his name is, but okay, Prabhu. Okay, Hare Krishna.
His name is
Thank you.
Bhadrashrava, and that's why the Varsha
Okay.
is known as Bhadrashva Varsha.
Badra. Okay,
And
Badra.
his name is Bhadrashrava. And the
Okay,
Varsha
thank
is
you.
Bhadrashrava. Yeah. Any other
Sama.
questions or comments? Okay. So thank you. So we will complete the next chapter. The next chapter is entitled A Description of the Island of Jambudvipa. So in the next chapter, we will discuss about Kim Purusha Varsha, Bharat Varsha, and then we discuss about a little bit more geography about Bharat Varsha because we are interested in that. So when we go to that, I'll discuss a bit more than what the Bhagavatam mentions, if I have time, because it will be interesting. That's the area of our immediate vicinity. Then it also includes how the Devatas glorify Bharat Varsha. So in one sense, one may think Bharat Varsha is the most ordinary amongst all these abodes. But the Devatas are actually glorifying Bharat Varsha. They want to take birth in Bharat Varsha. So what's special about Bharat Varsha? So that's discussed in the Bhagavad. And then apart from what we have discussed, around Jambudvip, there are some islands within the saltwater ocean. There are 7-8 islands which are mentioned. So we'll discuss about those islands also. They're not shown in the map here, but they are briefly mentioned. So there's some very interesting information there. You'll be very excited and interested when we come to that discussion. So hang on, and we will discuss this in the next class. It's not a very long chapter also. It's around 31 shlokas. And after we complete this section, then we'll actually get into the discussion of the structure of the universe. So again, we'll go back to the big picture. Okay, so next chapter will still be on Jambudvip and immediate surrounding area. So that again, zoom out, go back to full Bhumandal, universe, structure, what is beyond the 7 Dvipas, the Loka mountain, Vajralepa, etc., Loka Varsha, Aloka Varsha, Loka mountain. Then we'll go into the heavenly planets. Then we'll discuss about sun, moons, orbits, nakshatras, and the whole various very interesting phenomena. So that's how our conversation is going to proceed. So thank you so much for hanging on. Okay, so that brings to the end of today's class. So we will continue our CC class on Wednesday. So we missed it in this week, but we'll continue again from next week.
Tuesday, right, Prabhuji?
Sorry, yes, Tuesday. My apologies. Yeah, thank you. So on Tuesday. So if there's nothing else, then we'll conclude for today. Tantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Shri Prabhupada ki Jai, Samaveta Gaur Bhakta ki.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Prabhu.
Krishna.
Thank